Now at 9, a non-injury crash between two school buses in Joplin. Plus, we'll talk about exactly what happens to your ballot after you cast your vote. And
it's been 1 year since the October 7th attack on Israel, and tension in the Middle East continues to escalate. I'm Connor Hansen with a look back at the conflict coming up.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
When you vote on November 5th, you might wonder what happens to your ballot after you turn it in. This is KOAM News at 9. I'm Anthony Saviello. KOAM's Samantha Walker sat down with the Missouri Secretary of State to learn about the certification process for election results.
When your ballot leaves your hand, you won't be the last person to see it. Your ballot is dropped to the bottom of a tabulator or ballot box. It isn't copied or destroyed. When polls officially close, tabulator machines wrap up their numbers from all precincts, and election officials begin their count as well. But that is just the first step in a nearly month-long process to certify official election results and make sure your vote was counted correctly.
We keep counting. We then go through a process of certification. We go back and check the numbers. We keep track of how many ballots are sent to a polling location, how many are cast, how many are spoiled, how many are brought back. Does that match up with the number of votes?
He says this process also allows them to correct any issues they may notice within election results. Ashcroft says it's not uncommon for numbers to be entered incorrectly on accident at the local level, but the certification process ensures that someone else is counting those same ballots and corrects those numbers before it's too late.
Sometimes we will notice a problem on election night with a number, but once we've put it out there, we don't change it until we go through the certification process. Because the last thing we want is for numbers to be changing and people saying, hey, what's going on there?
The Secretary of State adds that you will likely see a slight difference in numbers between the unofficial results released on election night and those released after the certification process. The official results come directly from the Secretary of State's office after they have completed all certifications. You can find them on their website. Samantha Walker, KOAM News.
The certification process typically lasts for 30 days past the election. It's expected that 3 million Missourians will vote this November. The November general election is fast approaching, but in order to vote, residents must be registered in the county where they live. The deadline to register to vote in Missouri is this Wednesday, and the deadline to vote in Oklahoma, to register to vote in Oklahoma, is this Friday. For information on where and how to register, you can visit our website, koamnewsnow.com/elections. And some Oklahoma voters should be aware the Ottawa County Election Board has announced a change in polling locations. According to the board's Facebook page, the location for voters in Precinct 23 will change from Quapaw City Hall to the Quapaw Fire Department meeting room. The board says the location change is due to storm damage at City Hall. The city of Carthage is in the process of moving towards the impeachment proceedings of Mayor Dan Rife. KOAM's Melissa Alexis breaks down what's happened so far.
Carthage City Council has discussed the impeachment of Mayor Dan Rife starting back in April. The articles of impeachment filed by the Carthage City Council accuse Mayor Dan Rife of violating his oath and duties as mayor. One of the other points of conflict include tension relating to the Carthage Water and Electric Plant. Timothy Engelmeyer was supposed to be hired as the hearing officer when the impeachment hearing date was set. However, Rife filed for a temporary restraining order against the proceedings. A Jasper County judge determined that the delayed hiring of Timothy Engelmeyer violated Mayor Dan Rife's due process rights. As a result, a temporary restraining order was granted to Rife, temporarily halting the impeachment. The mayor's attorney believes that certain members of the council should be disqualified from being part of the impeachment jury due to bias. The date for the impeachment hearing is tentatively set for October 29th. In Jasper County, Melissa Alexis, KOAM News.
The temporary restraining order was resolved and official plans for the impeachment hearing will be discussed tomorrow at the Carthage City Council meeting. Well, we'll check in with Chief Meteorologist Doug Hetty for a first look at weather.
Well, of course, it turned out to be a nice Monday for us today. Temperatures, after we had a pretty warm weekend, it cooled down a little bit yesterday, and then today 77, 46 is where we started, average high 74, so pretty close to where we should be for this time of the year. Now, unfortunately, it's going to start to heat back up as we go through the next several days. Clear skies, nothing going on here, but everybody's watching Hurricane Milton, kind of a tiny compact guy, very small. Little tiny eye wall, but this will expand in coverage or real estate as we go through the next couple days. Right now, it's at about top of the scale, Category 5, clocking sustained winds at 180 miles per hour is going to make landfall on the western side of Florida here in about 2 days, Wednesday evening into Thursday morning. For us, looking pretty good, still chilly tonight, backing down into the upper 40s. We'll look at the rest of the week here in just a bit.
Thanks, Doug. A McDonald County judge today formally sentenced Dawn Wynn to life in prison without parole for shooting and killing her husband Harold Wynn in 2021 near Anderson, Missouri. During her trial in August, the defense argued that the initial investigation of the scene included a series of missteps, as well as no fingerprints on the murder weapon. A forensic pathologist testified that Mr. Wynn could not have committed suicide due to the lack of trace evidence, gunpowder, or burn marks. Wynn was also sentenced to 15 years in prison for armed criminal action. You'll find more details on the case on our website, KOAMnewsnow.com. Joplin authorities were clearing a crash on I-44 West near Rangeline just after 10 a.m. this morning when another crash occurred. The secondary crash, which happened in the eastbound lanes, involved two buses and a towed vehicle. The first bus was towing an SUV. As the first bus slowed in traffic, the second bus crashed into the towed vehicle, crushing it between the two. Authorities say both buses were new and being delivered to a school district but did not have children on board at the time, and there are no injuries reported. Coming up, what you should do with that one Christmas present that you just never used.
To regift or not to regift? That is the question. I'm David Asman with the Fox Business Network. More coming up.
Urgently needed.
One former St. Louis Children's Hospital patient has turned her struggles into a calling that's changing lives. Mike Bush has more.
At St. Louis Children's Hospital, young patients face some of life's biggest challenges. But for one former patient, those challenges became a calling.
Bite down all the way.
Today, as Dr. Kamlesh Patel meets with his 18-year-old patient, Jack Lofton,
And on this side,
there's an extra set of eyes in the room. Eyes that have seen this all before.
Yeah, it's pretty soft.
Riley Cruz knows exactly what Jack is going through. Born 2 months early in 2005, Riley's medical journey began before she even left the NICU. She was born with a condition called hemifacial microsomia.
Hemifacial microsomia can, in most cases, involve the jaw, meaning one side of the jaw is a little bit smaller, and you can have variations of that between just a bit smaller versus segments that are missing.
And for Riley, it was just the beginning. A golf ball-sized brain tumor and a weak heart led to more than 20 surgeries before she was 5 months old.
And you can see when we just do the lower jaw.
Fast forward to 2019 when 17-year-old Riley met Dr. Patel.
I'm sure all the scar tissue is hard to work around.
Yeah.
His innovative approach for her hemifacial microsomia would change her life.
Everyone doesn't get the same operation. You know, you have to tailor it based on everyone's anatomy. And the beauty of now is that we can actually create patient-specific implants, patient-specific, jaw replacement implants as well.
In a 14-hour operation, Dr. Patel and his team implanted a full titanium jaw, a first for Children's Hospital, and the road to recovery wasn't easy.
It was hard. It was a hard, probably 6 months after. The recovery was nothing like I've ever experienced.
But Riley powered through.
When was the last time you had any drainage from that?
Now she's in college, pre-med, shadowing the very doctor who changed her life.
Some people you can do amoxicillin.
I truly just feel like I was called to become a doctor and change lives like mine has been changed.
How was your scars healing?
Now as Jack prepares for his surgery,
it was tender, sore, they were tight.
Riley's presence is a beacon of hope.
Look at her, she's great, she's happy, she, is glad she did this. So we were just kind of put at peace when we met her.
After I could eat, I started checking things off.
Just having someone that's my age, someone that knows what I've done, and someone that can put it in words that I understand better, it definitely helps me just process information a little bit better.
In a world where scars often tell stories of pain, Riley's tell a different tale, one of resilience and hope.
If you're going through a surgery or anything, that you will always come out on the other end and be able to inspire others, and that God has made them this way for a reason and that they should embrace it. The physical therapist told me to massage them.
One young lady showing that the best medicine doesn't come from a bottle, but from a friend who's walked the same path.
The sky's the limit.
Doug is next with a complete look at the forecast. And later, multiple states in the U.S. continue to tackle the issue of abortion. We'll have the latest.
Charlene Patton shares her Rosa Center for the Arts.
Well, of course, it turned out to be a nice Monday for us today after the cold front that rolled through yesterday cooled us down just a bit. So instead of mid-80s like we had on Sunday, we dropped into the upper 40s and then only into the upper 70s during the afternoon. Now, unfortunately, because I like this nicer fall weather, we're going to see a slow warming trend as we go through the next several days. Let's check out Hurricane Milton. Compact little storm, very tiny little eye wall, only about 7-8 miles across, when usually you see it 50, 60, 70 miles across. So a very compact storm, but Milton, it's at peak strength right now, will slowly weaken as we go through the next couple days, but still it's going to sit right around a category 5 as we go through the next few days. Look at the upper level highs. So see how the winds are spreading these clouds all the way across Florida into the Atlantic Ocean. That is what we call upper level wind shear. That is what will help weaken Milton just a little bit as we go through the next couple days. One of the strongest hurricanes I think I've ever seen, clocking sustained winds 180 miles per hour. Stays a Cat 5 over the next 24 hours. And then once it gets a little bit closer to Florida, should drop down to a category 4. But remember, Helene was a category 4, so still major hurricane. Then should make landfall very close to Tampa as we get into Wednesday evening. The dirty side or the stronger side of the storm where we get most severe weather are these bands. So from Tampa to Fort Myers of Venice, those are going to be the areas that get the strongest storm surge out of this hurricane. The heaviest rains will stay right on the north side. So a lot of eyes on Milton as we go through the next few days. Back here at home, not a whole bunch going on. We have clear skies across the Central Plains. And if we look west, still not too much going on. Jet stream way up into Canada. Until this moves farther south, we're just not going to get much in the way of bigger storm systems into the region. For us tonight, mid to upper 40s, overnight lows, quick warm up, lower 70s by noon. Most of us will top out 79, 80 degrees. Very similar to what we saw today, maybe a notch or two hotter. Upper 40s again Wednesday night or Wednesday morning, and then as we go into Wednesday afternoon, we heat up into the low to mid 80s. So a slow stepping stone all week long. Eventually, we're going to be back up near 90 degrees by the time we head into the weekend. 49 to start, 72 by noon. High temp on your Tuesday of 79 degrees. Very weak little wave on Thursday may give us a sprinkle or two, but besides that, unfortunately, and we're going to stay dry all week long. I do think we'll see some better chances for rain, especially late next week. 79 Tuesday, 84 on Wednesday, 86 on Thursday, 87 Friday, near 90 once again as we head into the weekend. Anthony?
Thanks, Doug. Coming up, the Supreme Court has a lot of rulings to be made.
A new term is officially underway for the Supreme Court in Washington. I'm David Spunt with a preview of the big cases coming up.
We're here to help. We are the 4-state.
The age-old question, is it okay to re-gift presents during the holidays? Fox Business Network's David Asman has this story and more on tonight's Fox Means Business.
Return to Santa. According to a new survey from personal finance website Bankrate, a third of Americans think regifting a holiday present is an acceptable practice. It's just about in line with the 30% of respondents who have indeed regifted something in the past. Meantime, drivers starting the work week looking at some stable prices at the pump. The national average for regular unleaded gas holding steady over the weekend. A gallon now at $3.17. That's around 55 cents lower than what you were paying this time last year. To Wall Street and a sluggish start to the week for your money. The Dow, Nasdaq, and S&P 500 all lower on Monday. And Fright Night is starting early. According to a new survey from candy maker Hi Chew, 65% of adults saw their first horror movie when they were 11 years old, and around half of adults currently check out a scary movie to get into the Halloween spirit. That's business. I'm David Asman.
Some Ram truck owners will need to take a trip to the dealer. Chrysler is recalling more than 129,000 of its My Ram 1500 pickups that were built in 2023. The National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration says there's an issue with the steering column control module in the vehicles. Officials say the glitch could cause drivers to erroneously signal for a lane change, which could result in a potential accident. Drivers of affected trucks will receive a notification in the mail this month. Repairs will be made free of charge. A key borrowing rate for American consumers has climbed to a level we haven't seen in months. On Monday, the yield on the benchmark 10-year U.S. Treasury note broke 4% for the first time since August. According to TradeWeb, it went as high as 4.029% during the day. That extends a jump in the 10-year yield last week after a blowout September jobs report on Friday. The report led investors to adjust their expectations for how much the Federal Reserve will cut rates this year. Companies and everyday Americans are likely to feel pressure from these higher for longer rates. The 10-year yield tracks the rate on things like mortgages, student loans, and car loans. Well, up next, an elephant herd navigates flooding in Thailand.
The Ash Bash.
Conservationists in Thailand were racing to save over 100 elephants and other animals after their sanctuary was hit by flash floods. Video posted by the founder of the animal group, the Elephant Nature Park, showed a herd of elephants trying to escape the high water, with one last elephant appearing to struggle and move slower because she is blind. But the herd calls out to her, helping to guide her to safety. Thai authorities say a rescue operation is underway in Chiang Mai province, adding that 117 elephants have been rescued so far, but more animals still need help. 30 more minutes of news, weather, and sports coming your way. Coming up, the Supreme Court has their hands full as they address multiple cases before the election, plus a 75-year-old tradition that will have you craving noodles.
You're watching the 4 states' most watched news.
This is KOM News at 9 on Fox 14. I'm Anthony Saviello. The United States, Israel, and others mark the one-year anniversary of Hamas's deadly attack on Israel, igniting war in the Middle East, which has now spread. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed Monday in a speech Israel will continue to fight, although a humanitarian crisis continues to grow in Gaza. And many international allies have pressured the leader to negotiate a ceasefire and hostage release deal. Fox News correspondent Connor Hansen has more.
Thank you for being with us, for being with our community on the commemoration of this devastating day.
President Biden and the First Lady bowing their heads in prayer, marking the one-year anniversary of the October 7th attack in southern Israel by Hamas militants. It was the deadliest attack on Jews since the Holocaust. More than 1,200 people were killed. 1 year later, about 100 hostages, including several Americans, still remain captive.
Unlike the Holocaust, we fight back, and we're fighting like lions with the support of the American government.
After the highly coordinated attack by Hamas, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced his country was at war. Israel began airstrikes on Gaza and launched ground offensives. The fighting over the past year has left more than 41,000 Gazans dead, displaced millions, and ignited a humanitarian crisis in the region.
It is far time to end this conflict and to begin the work for a common future for Israelis and Palestinians with equal measures of security, dignity, opportunity, and freedom.
The U.S. has vowed military support for Israel in an effort to prevent a wider war from consuming the Middle East. But the goal is proving more difficult as time passes. In late August, Israel exchanged fire with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Then in September, mass explosions of pagers and walkie-talkies used by Hezbollah members killed at least 12. Israeli forces crossed the border into Lebanon, which sparked a response from Iran. It launched nearly 200 missiles in retaliation for the new offensive and for the Israeli killing of top Hamas and Hezbollah commanders. Despite pressure from the international community, ceasefire and hostage release talks have stalled. In New York, Connor Hansen, Fox News.
Georgia's state Supreme Court reinstates a ban on abortion after 6 weeks. A law signed in 2019 by Governor Brian Kemp bans abortions once a heartbeat is detected, typically 6 weeks into the pregnancy. The law didn't take effect until the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. A Superior Court judge ruled on September 30th that the law violated the state's constitution. The state Supreme Court reinstated the law Monday, meaning it will be in effect while the state appeals the Superior Court judge's ruling. The Supreme Court denies an appeal from the Biden administration over abortion requirements in the state of Texas. Federal guidance from the Department of Health and Human Services notified hospitals nationwide that emergency abortions must be performed if a mother's health is at risk. But doctors say under Texas law, the exception for abortion is vague. The SCOTUS decision keeps a Texas lower court's order in place, which lays out that hospitals could not be required to operate a pregnancy termination even in emergency situations. SCOTUS's rejection is a blow to the Biden administration's efforts to increase abortion access across the country. Today marks the start of a new term for the Supreme Court, and there's plenty of hot-button issues the court will be addressing. Fox News correspondent David Spunt has all the details from Washington.
The first Monday in October, the traditional start to the Supreme Court term, and there are already some key cases on the calendar. On Tuesday, the justices will hear a Second Amendment dispute over ghost guns, unfinished parts that turn regular guns into untraceable ones. The arguments will surround the Biden administration's regulation of these guns. The justices will also wade into the controversy over gender-affirming care for minors. This is considered an equal protection challenge to a Tennessee state ban on gender-affirming and certain transition-related care for minors. Tennessee is one of 25 states that have such measures. This will mark the first time the Supreme Court will consider restrictions on puberty blockers, hormone therapy, and transition surgery for minors.
When we're talking about children, minors, I think it's probably not unconstitutional in light of all of the other ways states can regulate minors differently than states can regulate adults.
But the wild card is whether the court will get involved in any election-related disputes over things like early voting, voter ID, and state certification of the results.
Anytime the court wades into political waters, it's going to be upsetting people, people who are on the side that loses. I think the court recognizes that it's not something that it wants to do, but in some cases it has no choice.
On Monday, the court declined to modify a Texas law that bans most emergency abortions. In Washington, David Spunt, Fox News.
A little later, those who are still cleaning up after Hurricane Helene now brace for Hurricane Milton.
As hurricane recovery presses on across the South, Floridians are bracing for another massive storm. I'm Chanley Painter with the latest on Hurricane Milton coming up.
Everybody ready?
Well, of course, it turned out to be a nice Monday for us today after the cold front that rolled through yesterday cooled us down just a bit. So instead of mid-80s like we had on Sunday, we dropped into the upper 40s and then only into the upper 70s during the afternoon. Now, unfortunately, because I like this nicer fall weather, we're going to see a slow warming trend as we go through the next several days. Let's check out Hurricane Milton. Compact little storm, very tiny little eye wall, only about 7-8 miles across, when usually you see it 50, 60, 70 miles across. So a very compact storm, but Milton, it's at peak strength right now, will slowly weaken as we go through the next couple days, but still it's going to sit right around a category 5 as we go through the next few days. Look at the upper level highs. So see how the winds are spreading these clouds all the way across Florida into the Atlantic Ocean. That is what we call upper level wind shear. That is what will help weaken Milton just a little bit as we go through the next couple days. One of the strongest hurricanes I think I've ever seen, clocking sustained winds 180 miles per hour. Stays a Cat 5 over the next 24 hours. And then once it gets a little bit closer to Florida, should drop down to a category 4. But remember, Helene was a category 4, so still major hurricane. Then should make landfall very close to Tampa as we get into Wednesday evening. The dirty side or the stronger side of the storm where we get most severe weather are these bands. So from Tampa to Fort Myers of Venice, those are going to be the areas that get the strongest storm surge out of this hurricane. The heaviest rains will stay right on the north side. So a lot of eyes on Milton as we go through the next few days. Back here at home, not a whole bunch going on. We have clear skies across the Central Plains. And if we look west, still not too much going on. Jet stream way up into Canada. Until this moves farther south, we're just not going to get much in the way of bigger storm systems into the region. For us tonight, mid to upper 40s, overnight lows, quick warm up, lower 70s by noon. Most of us will top out 79, 80 degrees. Very similar to what we saw today, maybe a notch or two hotter. Upper 40s again Wednesday night or Wednesday morning, and then as we go into Wednesday afternoon, we heat up into the low to mid 80s. So a slow stepping stone all week long. Eventually, we're going to be back up near 90 degrees by the time we head into the weekend. 49 to start, 72 by noon. High temp on your Tuesday of 79 degrees. Very weak little wave on Thursday may give us a sprinkle or two, but besides that, unfortunately, we're going to stay dry all week long. I do think we'll see some better chances for rain, especially late next week. 79 Tuesday, 84 on Wednesday, 86 on Thursday, 87 Friday, near 90 once again as we head into the weekend. Anthony?
All right, Doug, thanks. Don't forget, you can be the first to know about the day's weather with the KOAM Sky Watch weather app. Get severe weather updates sent straight to your phone free of charge. It's available on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. KOAM Sky Watch weather app. Well, coming up in sports, Missouri Southern football previews its matchup with Emporia State. Plus, a softball standout from Miami makes her college commitment. John Dales has that and more up next.
Missouri Southern football fell to Central Oklahoma on Saturday. That drops the Lions' record to 1-5. Now MSSU is still searching for its first home win and first MIAA win of the season. This week that pits the Lions against the 5-1 Emporia State.
It would be really easy for some of the blunders and frustrations that we've had this season to just like, hey, screw it, 2025, here we come, you know. But I think our guys have a tremendous amount of respect for each other and the hard work and sacrifices that we've made in the summer and off season. And we understand that the results are not what we wanted. It's not what we planned for. It's not what we weren't shooting for this start.
It all starts in practice, getting those reps, everybody talking, communicating, seeing what we see, seeing what we don't see. I mean, I feel like that's the biggest piece coming out, and stacking days.
Now that contest for the Lions will be their third-ranked opponent of the 2024 season, and this morning we get an update to the Division II coaches poll. Pittsburgh State moves up 3 spots. The Gorillas were ranked 10th the last 2 weeks. They get bumped up to 7 after a few upsets across the country. There are just two other MIAA teams in the top 25. Central Oklahoma's at 13, Emporia State at 18. Central Missouri is out of the top 25. The Mules were the number 2 team in the country preseason, but they've lost to UCO and Fort Hays State. Over to high school football, the most recent edition of our Performance of the Week goes to Nevada. The Tigers beat Lamar 20-19 on the road on Friday night in the annual Silver Tiger rivalry game. That's Nevada's first win over Lamar since 2004, before all these players were born. You can vote every week in our Performance of the Week poll right on our website. It remains open from Friday night through the next Monday at noon. Over to Missouri High School volleyball. 2 of the top teams in our area go at it tonight, and Webb City takes down Carl Junction 3-1 on the road. Bulldogs won the first set 30-28. Lady Cardinals respond by winning the next 3. Webb City improves to 21-3-1 on the season. It's just the second loss of the year for Carl Junction. Lady Bulldogs fall to 20-2. Some commitment news today. Miami High School junior Danae Green announces her verbal commitment to the University of Missouri Kansas City. Green has been a standout pitcher for the Lady War Dogs softball team the past couple seasons. She just helped them to a 3rd consecutive regional championship. She and her teammates play in the Class 4A Super Regionals against Wagoner on Thursday. Well, the Royals playoffs continue tonight. After losing by 1 run in the first game of the American League Division Series on Saturday, they hope to even the series. And the Royals lead 4-1 in the bottom of the 9th inning as we come on the air. Yanks scored the first run of the game in the bottom of the 3rd. Kansas City responds with 4 runs in the top of the 4th. Haven't had any scoring since that point. If Kansas City can hold on to this lead in the bottom of the 9th, series will be tied at 1 game apiece as we head back to Kaufman on Wednesday. And it's a big night for Kansas City sports. We've also got the Chiefs hosting the Saints on Monday Night Football. Kareem Hunt scored a 5-yard touchdown back in the 4th quarter. After that, Harrison Butker connects on 3 field goals. Saints scored a touchdown at the start of the 4th quarter, and then the Chiefs just scored to go back up by 10. So it's an exciting night for Kansas City sports.
Absolutely.
Close to getting 2 big wins.
Yeah, for Royal, all across the board. Yeah, it's pretty great. Thanks, John. We'll be right back. As the long road to recovery presses on across the storm-battered southeast, following Helene's destruction, the Sunshine State is bracing for yet another possible hurricane to make landfall later this week. Fox News correspondent Chanley Painter takes us closer to preparations.
It's a war zone.
Another round of devastation could overwhelm many communities already lying in ruin in the wake of Hurricane Helene. This as forecasters say Hurricane Milton strengthened Sunday in the Gulf and is creeping closer.
It's going to start picking up the pace there as it comes closer to Florida before it makes landfall, likely sometime on Wednesday afternoon.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says it's too early to tell with 100% accuracy where Milton could impact. Forecasters looking at possible tracks suggest Milton could strike in the Tampa Bay region before moving across central Florida and making its way out into the Atlantic.
The path comes right over us, so I'm hoping it changes a little bit so we don't get all the rain, but we see what the constant rain can do. It just floods the area.
If you are not feeling comfortable, if your home is not safe to live in, it's good to find another place to go, whether it's with friends or a hotel.
Governor DeSantis on Sunday expanding a state of emergency declaration to include 51 counties.
I have water, I have canned goods, I have flashlights, I have pretty much everything else I need.
He's warning potential destruction from Milton could be amplified because of the vast amount of debris from Helene that's still lingering around many neighborhoods. DeSantis is calling for local contractors to quickly bolster removal.
Just sitting there is a hazard.
Forecasters say Milton could potentially reach Category 4 status, but weaken to a Category 3 before landfall. FEMA's administrator says the agency is already making preparations. I'm Chanley Painter, Fox News.
Coming up, a 75-year-old tradition in Frontenac that brings the whole community together. For 75 years, generations of chefs have embraced a beloved tradition, preparing chicken and noodle dinners to benefit the church's fundraiser for its mission and faith. The tradition is upheld by members of the Frontenac United Methodist Church, where their dish sells out each fall and winter. KOAM's Lonnie Walton spoke with an original member and takes us to the kitchen for more.
Well, honey, if you was raised back 75, 80 years ago, you do a lot of things, learn how to do a lot of things. And noodles was something that we all made back then.
Cleo Nataleading from Frontenac United Methodist Church is the original member of the 75-year tradition chicken and noodle dish. She says she does it all for her faith.
We did it to raise money for the church, and it's just gone on and on.
Church member Jan Alai says they were whooped after all the work. They've invited the Frontenac Middle School next door to help with the load.
We're worn out.
It's a lot of work.
I tell you, we had to start making noodles a week before because we couldn't do it. We've been blessed with the students from Frontenac that come over.
The members of the church are very thankful for the students who come and help them. The teacher says it's the experience that they get from the classroom to the kitchen.
They love it. Like this group right now doesn't want to leave. They're upset when the block is over, that it's time to go back to their regular schedule. And then the students in the past, if they get to do it again, they're like, yes, I love Noodle Day.
I love those kids like they was my own.
As the aroma of the homemade noodles fill the air, it's clear that this time-honored tradition helps strengthen the bonds of the community. Reporting in Frontenac, I'm Lonnie Walton, KOAM News.
How many noodles to make? The church says they plan on making between 80 to 100 pounds of chicken for the season. If you want to get a taste of those homemade noodles, the church will start taking pre-orders during the middle of next week. The October dinner will be held on October 16th. That's our time for now. Thanks for joining us from all of us here at KOAM. Have a great night.